Ooh. Oh man, that was rough. Let me try that again. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Oh man, I guess my voice is a little hoarse because I just went out to my cousin's graduation party and the music was really loud, so I was screaming just to talk to anybody. So I apologize for my less than stellar performance just now. Deeply apologetic, but the show must go on regardless of the tragedy you just bore witness to. Anyway, so, ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, probably all gentlemen, we are back for UDL Cycle 2 recap. By cycle, I mean 3 weeks of each tier. Like I did one after the first 3 weeks, now I'm doing one after the weeks 4, 5, and 6. Let me just make sure that the audio is recording. Okay, good. I'm going to keep checking up on that like last time every now and then because I just want to make sure that I am not being cut off because sometimes my mic just stops working midway through recordings and stuff. And yeah, that's no fun. So for this recap, I'm going to be going over weeks 4, 5, and 6. Like I said, I actually only have one Oros game to show because I feel like the Oros games weren't as quality, unfortunately, for that past week as the next 2 weeks. So I have 3 from Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon and 2 from Sword and Shield. So totals to 6. I'm doing about 6 for each one of these recaps. I'm trying to make sure that I get everybody featured in these. If you haven't been featured yet, hopefully you will be in this one. And if you're not in this one, I'll make sure that everybody will get featured at least once by the end of the 3rd cycle. So I'm definitely doing my best with that. But there are certain games that I've been, I would say, like highlight games that I want to make sure that I show just because the quality was really good and I would enjoy commentating over it. So that's why if I didn't get you in this one, I'm sorry, but I will try to make sure I get you in the next round. So UDL Season 3, been a wild ride so far. Like I said last time, the competition is higher than ever, pretty much across the board, but it has been a little bit of a hacksy season, probably more than a little bit. There's been more hacks than ideal, and of course that's going to happen any draft league season. Will you have plenty of games that you're looking forward to kind of get neutered by hacks, but this season really feels like more than usual, I guess. I don't know, it could just be me, but there have been plenty of ones I've been excited for that it's like, oh damn, that one seems like it was kind of affected by hacks way more than I would like or anyone would like, because you'd like to see when there's these high competition or high level games definitive winners and whatnot, but you can't always get that, unfortunately, in Pokemon. That's just the game that we play. So I try to do my best picking out these games, trying to get ones that I thought were pretty definitive and just all around solid games. So we will get right into it. UDL Cycle 2, starting out with Oras, and we have 2 legends, 2 gods. We have Anti, the Carcoals, versus TDK. These 2 are 2 of the best Smogon players I know. Just as I mentioned in the last video, guys that have the perfect skill set for draft format, so it was really awesome to get them in the league this season. And it was really hype when they went up against each other because they know each other really well, and they're 2 very creative team builders, so I knew that we'd probably get a pretty enjoyable one out of these guys. So Anti's team is over here, the Carcoals versus TDK. TDK's got a really, really nice looking team. A lot of it looks like it could be an OU team, but then he's got this Scyther that he's been making a really good use out of, and Anti has he's got like a pretty wacky lineup for his Oras, especially if you look at it from top to bottom, because he's got pick number 1 Ditto and stuff. But Anti is at his best when he's using just a random assortment of mons that don't look like they have the most synergy and cohesion together, but that's where he really thrives, because you just don't know what to expect from him, and he always is catching people off guard. So this was a good one, and we will hop right into it. Anti leads with his Empoleon and TDK with his Landorus, but it turns out Anti is Defiant, but he is not a Shuckleberry, so he does end up switching out to his Deoxys, as that takes very little from the Earthquake, but Lando does Toxic it, as here he fires off an Ice Beam on the incoming Scyther, and that only took 29, so that pretty much tells you he's a Violite. But he switches out here because probably would take a lot from U-turn as TDK takes that as an opportunity to roost up and bring in his Kyurem, as the Empoleon actually goes for Swords Dance on the Kyurem, and now the Earth Power does a solid 48%. Unfortunately, that is going to be enough to 2 KO Anti's Empoleon, but Steel Wing doing a solid 69%. That's so funny that Empoleon's strongest steel move is Steel Wing. It's not that much weaker than Iron Head, but yeah, it's a base 70 power move, so with Stab only about 105 base power, so really not that strong, but SD Empoleon, that's pretty clean. And unfortunately, I don't think Anti realized that Aqua Jet wouldn't kill from here, as he couldn't believe it only did 10%. So he probably, I don't know if he really had a switch in or not, but if he did have one, he probably should have switched out, but that did nothing. So at least he kept him within range of coming back in on Stealth Rocks, though. Like, I do think TDK's probably got Defog on this team because he roosted up with his Scyther, but maybe not. So yeah, I mean maybe he doesn't. I really don't know. But yeah, so that was, I guess, a good play in that regard. Is at least it does make it most likely that Kyurem won't be able to come back in. He'll probably have to sack it off here or something, as he actually does switch out, so he probably does have the Defog, as Anti goes right for the Quiver Dance, and now he goes right for the Fire Blast. Does 83%, meaning that the Metagross is Assault Vest, so he probably should have Quiver Danced one more time, just because I think that would have guaranteed the KO, and from there on out, I don't know how he's beating this Volcarona, but as you're going to see, because he does the 83 with the Fire Blast, but this Landorus must have had a ton of Spadef investment, because I couldn't believe it. Actually, maybe the second Quiver Dance wouldn't have won it, because that's a 63. I don't know if it would have really done a full other 25% more if he had gotten to the second, if he had gotten another boost. So I'm really not sure on that one. TDK packed a lot of Spadef on this Lando T, so props to him, because I was thinking that could be game right there. And the Fire Blast kind of bounced off, 63. So here comes Zygarde as Anti goes for Substitute, and then goes for Dragon Dance, and all of a sudden is looking pretty good. But what's funny here is that he actually doesn't have a... I think his only move to hit the Landorus is Outrage, and he doesn't end up wanting to go for the Outrage because he will get stuck against the Diancie. So he ends up switching out, so he probably should not have brought Zygarde in that scenario. But it happens. Make mistakes. And the HP Ice does very little to the Deoxys. Here he's able to fire off an Ice Beam as TDK sacks his Scyther. So in next comes the Mew as Anti goes hard into his Skuntank, which he reveals to be Choice Scarf on the Mew. And Mew crits with Earthquake. Would have been a 2 KO anyway, so not the biggest deal in the world. But Anti's just going to fire off another Crunch as the Diancie comes in. Takes very little from that. Is going to Mega Evolve here, go right for the Moonblast as Anti sacks his Zygarde. And now here comes the Deoxys defense. Probably just trying to weaken down this Diancie a little bit more as he's firing off these Ice Beams. And TDK actually switches out. I don't know if he was scouting for some kind of Steel move or something, or if he wanted to keep HP on that for another reason. But, for example, like Gallade's Drain Punch, if he's something like that, or Zen Headbutt, maybe keeping a little bit of health on Diancie gives him a chance to lift something like that. As here he subs with the Mew again, as here comes the Skuntank, as he's able to crunch one more time, as the Mew just goes for Earthquake. Now he's going to bring in his Gallade and go right for a Swords Dance, as Anti actually goes for the Rock Tomb. And now he is forced to just knock off here, I believe, as the Landorus comes in. He knocks off the Yache Berry, and now the Diancie comes in. So this is pretty much going to come down to, unless Anti had Substitute here, it was pretty much going to come down to, or TDK had Substitute here, it was pretty much going to come down to a speed tie, because unless he had Sub and predicted him to switch there, just having to sack off the Deoxys, then, or Rock Polish even, then this was probably going to come down to a speed tie, because the Mew is already revealed to be leftovers, so coming in after Stealth Rocks probably won't be able to take a knockoff, and this Diancie is probably going to be in range of Gallade, so he brings in his Gallade, which is actually like max HP or something like that, which wouldn't live a Moonblast from here, crazily enough, but actually made the Drain Punch more of a roll. I don't know what TDK's spread was, but that might have been a really lucky roll on Anti's part, and he also won the speed tie, so he gets the Drain Punch and then cleans it up with knockoff. So very, very close game. Literally came down to a speed tie, because I'm pretty sure the Moonblast would have knocked out the Gallade from there, because Anti said he was max HP, but I calced it, and it actually does like 94 minimum, something crazy. So Diance's really strong, and he really needed that outspeed there, and probably needed a little bit of a roll to kill with Drain Punch, unless maybe he was a hasty nature or something like that, then it probably would have KO'd, but I really don't know the exact roll, so I'm kind of curious. But nonetheless, great game between two amazing players and really, really good friends, so I know they were looking forward to that one. Hopefully they enjoyed it as much as I did. So next up, we've got Ice Demon Gray versus Helmy. Y'all know Helmy. He's been here since Season 1. Same thing with Ice. And Helmy... Oh no! That was so weird. My my microphone just fell off of the like stalk that I'm holding on. Gotta screw it back in real quick. Okay. This is so weird. So, anyway, let's see. Did it stop working? I'm not sure. No, I don't think it stopped working. I think it's actually stayed on. Like, I don't think it needs to be connected to this to still work, but that's good. So, Helmy, classically bringing 6 different mons to a Pokemon battle. Who else does that but Helmy? I don't know anybody else. And Ice has been on a tear this season. He started off actually at 0-2, but don't want to spoil the result of this game, but he has been on just a winning streak from the beginning of the season. He's doing really, really well, playing probably the best that I've seen him play since I met him a few years back, which was with UDL Season 1. He made the playoffs back then, but obviously the competition has gotten even more stiff, so to be doing so well at this point in the game is really impressive. So I wanted to make sure we got a good Ice game in here, and Helmy's always putting on a show, so win or lose, it's going to be entertaining. So Ice leads with Tornadus, Helmy leads with Scizor, goes right for the knock, and Helmy actually brought Choice Scarf Sylveon, as Hyper Voice is a good chunk, but the Iron Tail is going to be able to knock him out next. So Ice makes a good play going Metagross, because he's Sugar Berry and knows that he won't get the Intimidate drop, and knocks him out with Ice Punch. So very, very good play on Ice's part, as he's already weakened the Sylveon. He's taking out the Lando T, Helmy's best Pokemon here, and now gets the Meteor Mash boost as the Cloyster sets up a Spike. Goes for another one, as Helmy just goes for Liquidation, doing less than 20. A stab Liquidation doing less than 20 to Metagross. That's crazy. So now he actually wins the speed tie and is able to knock it out, as Ice Shards the Torn. Heat Wave knocks out the Cloyster. Now the Electric comes in, misses a Toxic on the Rotom, unfortunately. Rotom goes for Defog. I think he misses another one. Yeah, that was tough. It happens, but that's tough. So here he gets the Toxic on the Rotom finally. The Hex doing very little, considering that's a Stab Hex, and the Electros is burned. But that's how bulky it is with the Violite. So here, the Hyper Voice does a decent little chunk to the Suicune, as here Helmy reveals the Hyper Beam, and that does 64 to a Suicune. That was crazy. So here comes the Decidueye, goes for Spirit Shackle, Choice Banded, just cleans up that Tornadus, which was really cool. Here comes the Electric, and the Icicle Crush does a million, so that must have been Max Spadef, as here comes the Suicune. Mega Evolves, goes for the U-turn, brings in the Decidueye, goes for Sucker Punch on the Mamoswine. Does a good chunk, but not going to be enough, as here comes the Scizor again, goes for the Bullet Punch. Here comes the Rotom. Will-O-Wisps, as Helmy's only move, I think, here to hit this thing was U-turn, so I think he's just going to actually end up getting knocked out by the next 2 Hexes. So very well-played game on both ends. The Hyper Beam was a really awesome tech, and I think when Ice made that very nice play, doubling into the Metagross because it catches the Landorus, that really switched the momentum, because I don't know what Helmy's set was, but it's a Lando T, you know, like one of the best mons, especially in Sun and Moon, where it has access to Z moves. So just an amazing Pokemon that is a glue pretty much to any team it's on. Just being knocked out without doing anything like that was, or doing very little, I should say, was a great trade for Ice. So really, really good play there. Good prep on both ends, and both guys have been having pretty fun and entertaining seasons to watch. Ice is killing it, so kudos to him. Next up for Sun and Moon, we have myself versus Rob Jr., and we had actually played last season where we played in Oros, and I felt like I had a good matchup, and he ended up beating me pretty badly because I just ended up making some unfortunate series of plays here and there. And although we both ended up having good seasons, I didn't get to face him in the playoffs because I lost the round before facing him. So he ended up winning the season last year, so I was definitely excited to get to play him again. I was going into this game at 4-0, and last season I played him going in at 3-0, and he gave me my first loss. So I was like, I do not want to let that happen again, but I thought I had a good matchup because my Sun and Moon team looks so powerful. I've got Landorus Eye, I've got Darkrai, I've got Infernape, I've got Latios, but I've just been like having really tough matchups with it where all of my Mons just invite in my opponent's biggest threats that I just don't have good counterplay to. So it was a really, really tough one. I was just struggling so much in the builder for this one, but eventually came out with a team that I felt would give me a chance. So we get right into it. I Ice Punch or I was thinking this, let me switch this around because I was thinking this was me for a second. I'm like, wait, I didn't Ice Punch anybody. So remove this, switch sides, reset. So I'm going to leave with my Roserade. I'm Yachi Berry because that could help me take on things like the Nidoking, the Gallade. I know that Gallade can run Zen, but I was pretty confident that he would not have Zen in this game, and also I do have the ability to at least scout for that, so I stuck with Yachi Berry, and I'm actually with enough speed to creep Nidoking, so him going for Ice Punch at least tells me that he is Choice Scarf, but the second one would be able to knock me out, so I'm just going to go right for the Energy Ball here because I want to get some good damage on Nidoking. I do have Hazards, but he's got a Delmise, which could spin on a lot of my team, so I'm going to get some damage on this Nidoking, and the fact that he's Choice Scarf is actually pretty bad for me because I just wasn't really expecting Choice Scarf Nidoking, and I realized that like some of my earlier teams that I had built for this game were more prepared for a Scarf Nidoking, but this one just was pretty weak to it, so I'm like, alright, it's good that I got damage on it, but this thing is a threat, so get a good chunk on it with the Energy Ball, but now he's going to go into his Slowbro as I go Hariyama here, so he makes a good play, knowing that if I go Hariyama on Nidoking, the Slowbro covers me. But I know that being able to Toxic this, because I actually don't have knockoff, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd want to go for that because I have things like Darkrai and Landorus Eye, and this is likely to be an Assault Vest Slowbro because that's his best check to something like a Landorus Eye. But I just couldn't really fit knockoff on this set, so I'm going to go for Toxic here because just putting this thing on a timer in general is nice, and being able to keep it low and whatnot. So I'm actually the eject button on this Hariyama, so if he goes for Psyshock, I know it wouldn't be able to kill me unless he actually had a boosting item or something. So turns out that Psyshock reveals he does not have much special attack, so I am sent out into my Darkrai. So here I am actually going to just go into my Roserade, because on the off chance that he's something like Cobra Berry with Thunder Wave, that would be really bad, or just, yeah, that would be the worst case scenario with the Slowbro. Or if he goes into the likely Clefable, at least I catch that with my Roserade. So here I'm going to get up a Spike to hopefully put some pressure on his team. Now I'm going to Hidden Power Fire the Delmise because I'm going to force him to spin, so I could at least get a couple big chunks of damage on him with the Hidden Powers. And now I put him in range of most Mons on my team. So here I could knock this out with Knockoff, but I actually blanked on the fact that Gallade gets Justified. So like, I thought this was a really safe knockoff here, but it really isn't the most safe because I don't have good switch-ins to Gallade at +1. Like, I have Mesprit that could switch in before he's at +1, because even if he does Swords Dance, I could take a hit from +2, but I can't take 2 +1 hits if he goes for at least a move that would 2-hit KO me, like Knockoff or X Scissors. So that was actually, I guess, kind of a misplay by my part, because I just totally blanked on Justified. I do get a crit there. Probably doesn't matter too much, but yeah, damage is damage, so that does kind of stink. He gets up to +1, and now here I go into Hariyama just because I really can't risk going into my Mesprit in case he just went for a hard knockoff there, because it was relatively safe. So he actually goes right for a Swords Dance, making a very bold play, because he probably knows that he would be able to guarantee knock out my Mesprit at +3, but that was definitely a dangerous play, because unless maybe he's really bulky and he knows he can live in Earth Power, but let's say I had like Fly or something, Power Herb Fly, then that could have knocked him out, which was a set that I actually was experimenting with. So here I go into my Hariyama, Bullet Punch this. I do get another crit, so that is pretty lame, but I actually do have a Mon that can do more than enough to this Gallade, which is my Darkrai. So I really wanted to just Sludge Bomb here, knowing that he's almost definitely going to go to Clefable, but ultimately I lose the game if I Sludge Bomb and he does not switch out. So I go for the foul play just to be safe, because I do think I still have a chance to win from here, but it is looking tough. I get another crit, so that's like 3 crits in like a handful of turns. I know they weren't really like particularly influential, but that's just stupid. So he gets up his rocks versus me, which I was kind of surprised. I did kind of have to make a little bit of an aggressive play and stay in there, but I knew I could live a Moonblast from full. And I have Healing Wish on my Mesprit just in case I need to heal up this Darkrai, so that worked out pretty well for me, but he does turn out to be a very, very specially defensive Clefable, because I'm Expert Belt on my Darkrai, so that Sludge Bomb only doing 51 means he's probably max. So he goes into his Dhelmise here as I Sludge Bomb again, get the Sludge Bomb Poison, no biggie. As here I'm just going to foul play again. And here he's going to bring in his Nidoking. So I know that it's Scarf, but I do calc Adamant Mega Horn. And with my investment, the max roll on Mega Horn is like 95 or something like that. So, or 98, one of those two. So I know that I can definitely live. And I just don't have the counterplay to this Nidoking at this point, because I really wasn't prepped for it. I need more health on Mesprit to check things like Gallade. I don't want my Landorus taking any damage, because I am Yachi Berry, and I could take a hit from Slowbro, Nidoking, Gallade, unless I, take some damage. And then same thing with Steelix, like if he does go for a ground move, then that would be pretty rough for me, or even a fire move, just pretty much anything. Here, I don't want to risk going into Steelix, so I'm like, I just need this knocked out, because I think Darkrai is a pretty good win con here, and Landorus also goes really in if I could just take this thing out and then try to Healing Wish Darkrai back up later. So he goes for the Mega Horn, does 95%, and I do knock it out with the Dark Pulse. So now he goes into a Scizor, and I'm just praying he doesn't have Pursuit here, because if he has Pursuit, then I probably lose. But he would have to risk though, because Darkrai is faster than Scarf Scizor, so any kind of like hit Incinerate or Hidden Power Fire, if he's not Aqua Berry, would knock him out. So I just have to hope that he wasn't Pursuit, and he reveals either not to be or just doesn't go for it, as he goes right for the Bullet Punch. As most of the rest of his team is kind of in range, like Slowbro is Assault Vest, so not necessarily, but if I flinch him, then he's in a bad spot. So going out to Scizor made sense, because his Clefable's in range of Sludge Bomb, Gallade's in range of Foul Play. So here I go into my Mega Steelix, as I can just Mega Evolve, go right for the Earthquake, knowing he's probably going to go Slowbro, and it does a really good chunk to anything. Gallade would go down, Clefable might go down, but if it doesn't, I just Heavy Slam and take that thing out. So here he goes Slowbro, as now I'm going to go Mesprit, because I know there's a very good chance I will be able to Healing Wish my Darkrai back up. So I'm going to go for the Healing Wish here, and I didn't want to. I considered going for Stealth Rocks there, because I knew that Clefable was the most likely play. But had I gone for Stealth Rocks, and then let's say he brings in Scizor, and he outspeeds me, like Choice Bandit or something, then I would die to U-turn, and I wouldn't get the Healing Wish off, and that would pretty much be a good game. And if he goes Clefable, and I give him a chance to heal up on me, that's also very bad, because it could take a Sludge Wave from Landorus, and it is no longer even close to being in range of Darkrai's Sludge Bomb. So that would have been really bad for me if I did try to Stealth Rock there and get a little greedy. So I go right Darkrai, and now I'm trying to figure out this end game, because if he is max Spadef Clefable, this roll to live a Sludge Bomb from here is actually in his favor. So I am going to actually go into my Steelix here, because if he does live this and Moonblast me here, then I lose the game, because Scizor could revenge me, and then I don't really have the necessary remaining team members to be able to beat Gallade, Slowbro, even Scizor and Clefable, I guess. So, but mostly the Gallade and Slowbro, which wouldn't be able to, because if there's any damage on my Landorus, then Gallade can revenge it, and then Steelix loses kind of to... I mean, Steelix might have had a chance to do something, but I would have been in a really bad spot, so I decided I have to go to my Steelix here, and he does go for the Moonblast, knowing that the game would end if I tried to stay in and Sludge Bomb there, so good play on his part, as now I am actually going to just Earthquake on the incoming Slowbro, do a decent chunk. I wished at this point that I had still had Stealth Rocks on my Steelix, because I know that if I was able to get up Stealth Rocks, then if this Clefable is unaware, Stealth Rocks would put Clefable in range of Sludge Bomb from my Darkrai, guaranteed. So I decide that I could maybe switch into my Landorus on this Slowbro, because even if he gets a max roll Scald plus burn, because I identified earlier that he was not very specially attack invested, that I would be able to live a max roll plus a burn. I just needed to not get crit, and I needed to bank on his Clefable being unaware, and I feel like it's probably unaware at this stage in the game because he's leftovers instead of something like a Kebia Berry, which would have been probably more likely on Magic Guard, because at +2 Sludge Bomb can knock him out if I'm Life Orb or Expert Belt like I am. So that's why it made more sense for him to have leftovers on unaware, because even if I get it to +2, then he just ignores that. So right now my only real endgame route is to get up my Stealth Rocks against this Slowbro and hopefully put everything in range of Darkrai, because I do have Incinerate for the Scizor. We know that it's Life Orb, so I know that I could one-shot it. So here I go into my Landorus, he does Scald, he does get the burn, but like I said, I could get like even a max roll plus burn and it wouldn't knock me out. So here I go right for my Stealth Rocks as he brings in his Scizor. Good play on his end, but now it really just comes down to whether he is unaware Clefable or not, because if he is Magic Guard, then this game is pretty much over, because Sludge Bomb just, it's not even a roll to knock out the Clefable from here. So I am going to Incinerate this, and now he brings in the Clefable, and I'm really happy to see that he is not Magic Guard, because now it's in range of the Sludge Bomb, goes right down, and then I'm actually able to clean up the rest of the game with my Darkrai. The Foul Play knocks out the Gallade, and now he brings in his Slowbro. It actually doesn't knock it out, which is crazy. I'm Expert Belt. I'm not fully max special attack, but I'm pretty close, so it's crazy that it actually lived on 1. But I do get the flinch. He wouldn't have been able to knock me out with any move there anyway. So that was a really, really tight game where literally if I didn't bank on that one kind of Hail Mary, I probably would have lost. So great game to Rob. That was a really fun one, and I'm glad I got to play him again this season. And yeah, that was a really good one. So moving on to this next one, which I'm sure a lot of people were looking forward to this whole season, I know I was Aki the GOAT versus Iron Flash Gaming, and the GOAT versus BBC King has been a very long awaited singles match, because we haven't really got one out of these two, and it's just two of the greatest to go at it, and it's in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, a tier that both of them have a lot of experience in, so that was pretty cool too. Really good drafts on both ends in my opinion. Aki's actually looks more like one that I would use, which is cool. So he's actually got the Ash Greninja here, and he showed me the team. I mean, they both showed me the teams that they built, and they're both really cool, but Aki's is like crazy cool. So he's got like the Workup, Hydro Cannon, Z Water Greninja. He's got the max special attack, or max special defense rather, Metacham. I literally max Spadef pretty much. He's got like a cool mix, or I don't know if it was mixed, but it was just like a pretty cool Mesprit set. He had Endure, Custap, Seismitoad. So it was a cool team, and Tony's team literally looks like an OU team pretty much. It's pretty stacked, so really good drafts, and we will get right into it. So Aki leads with the Mesprit, and Tony goes for the taunt, and he tried to go for the Thunder Wave, so good play on Tony, preventing the Stealth Rocks or anything like Thunder Wave. So here, Aki goes for knockoff, not a very good play, because Tornadus is likely the Z-Mon, and he's just getting overly aggressive here, and now makes it even worse by Tony going for Hurricane, confusing the Mesprit, but it does break through confusion, but he goes for knockoff again. This is just Aki being Aki. Like, sorry, these series of plays kind of annoyed me because he's better than that, but like, that's how he just chooses to play sometimes, because he really thinks that like Tony would try to get the initiative by going into something like Aegislash or Muck, just something that you would kind of expect that could actually be knocked off, when he's literally got like Ice Beam and stuff on this set that could just really damage the Torn and weaken it. But yeah, just not a good series of plays for Aki to start off this game, but it happens. Here he ends up finally going for Thunder Wave, thinking that he wouldn't taunt here. Oh my gosh, as Tony goes into his Garchomp. So very poorly played Mesprit. Sad to see, because it was a cool set, and it's one of my favorite Mons, but Tony's able to knock that out with the Dragon Claw, and now Aki goes into his Seismitoad, which he's just going to get up the Stealth Rocks as the Manaphy comes in, and now switching out, obviously got a Scout for the Energy Ball, but Tony goes right for the Tail Glow, and now you're going to see something pretty cool, because when have you ever seen a Mega Medicham take 75% from a +3 Manaphy, and hits back with the Thunder Punch doing a full 67, which is pretty crazy. So like, that's a lot of damage considering he's max Spadef with like no attack investment. So very cool. And now is knocked out by the Ice Beam. So it's 4-6 start, but at least he weakened one of the biggest threats in the Manaphy, and yeah, didn't really do much to the Torn. But yeah, he's weakened one of the biggest threats in Manaphy, and still has some of his better Mons against Tony left, like this Hydra, and especially the Greninja. That has a really nice matchup here. So he goes into his Hydra, which is actually Physical Choice Scarf, which is a really good bring here. Goes right for the Crunch as Tony brings in the Aegislash, which takes a million from that. As here, Aki goes into the Seismitoad on the King Shield, good play, and now goes right for a knockoff, which doesn't do much to the Torn, but the Torn goes for the Flyinium Hurricane, as that does so little. That was crazy. But the Poison Touch ends up landing on the Torn, as here he actually goes hard into his Hydreigon. I'm assuming that he expected to switch out for the regen into something like, I don't know, if it being like Manaphy or Necro or what it was, but Tony actually goes for the Toxic, which was a solid play there, and ends up catching the Hydra, but not too bad because it's a Scarf Hydra, so it's not like he needs so much health on it, but that did end up working out for him, as the Torn does go down and does get a poison off on the Hydra. So here, Aki ends up going for the Outrage, which was smart, because if he pops a weakness policy with Crunch, then the Necro would be able to knock the Hydra out, but he goes for the Outrage, and Tony actually goes for Autotomize, which was not a good play, because he should have realized earlier that this could be a Scarf Hydra, and I think he just didn't realize that +2 Necrozma with his spread wouldn't outspeed a Scarf Hydra. So the next play, this Hydra's just able to take out the Necro, which is really good for Aki, because all of a sudden he's brought this back pretty much into his favor, because the Aegislash is really weak and the Manaphy is really weakened, and a Scarf Hydra beats a non-Scarf Garchomp if he's, I think he's Mega Chomp, so yeah, it beats the Garchomp. So now the Aegislash comes in as Tony goes back, or Aki goes back into his Seismitoad, and now ends up going for the knockoff here, but drops his attack 2 stages, as here comes the Garchomp, as he goes for a knockoff again, and this really stinks for, he gets the Poison Touch, but this stinks for Aki, because if he went for something like Earthquake there, I don't know if he had Earthquake in. I don't think he did. So if he like predicted the Garchomp there and didn't go for a move that would do Rough Skin damage, then he would be in Custap range, and he was Custap Endeavor. So if he Custaps and Endeavors the Chomp, then he puts in like right in range of any attack of anything, and puts Greninja in a great spot because he could just come in, get that easy Ash Gran evolution. But unfortunately that didn't work out. But that would have been really cool. I was hoping that would happen there. So here comes the Greninja, as if it has Ice Beam, obviously that's in range anyway. So he makes a pretty hard read and goes right for the workup, expecting Tony to switch out, and he does. And that, I really thought, sealed up the game right here and there, because this is, like I said, a Hydro Cannon Greninja. So it has the max power on a Z Water move, and then can Hydro Cannon again if it needs to, which even something like a Muck can't really take +1 Hydro Cannons from Greninja, because it's or Ash Greninja, because it's just so insanely powerful. So here he ends up going for the Dark Pulse, but if he just goes for a Z, if he goes for a Workup here or a Z Hydro Cannon, I'm pretty sure he's got the game in the bag here. But he goes for a Dark Pulse. I'm not sure if he was like trying to make a read or what he was doing, but that was a really bad play, because at least if he does like miss out on a roll or something like that, then the Muck has its berry popped and only gets up to around like 50% and is in range of like another +1 Hydro Cannon or a Z Hydro Cannon or something, and it doesn't have the chance to recycle. So he definitely needed to go for that there, and because he didn't, now things get a little trickier, because he's in against the Aegis Slash, or the Aegis Slash comes in scouting for the Z move, which was smart. He gets his evolution off by knocking out the AG, but here comes the Manaphy, and it ends up being a Salic one, which, because the Muck is still around, if the Muck had been weakened, then he like has like a legitimate chance here, because it would be in range of attack from Hydra. It would be in range of yeah. So anyway, and I think the roll was in his favor to knock it out in the first place. So now the Manaphy comes in, just energy balls the Greninja. He probably should have gone into his Zapdos there, but so he could save the Greninja to have those Hydro Cannons, because Muck can't really take Hydro Cannons that well from Greninja. But yeah, because maybe what he could have done is Hydro Cannon the Muck into range of like a Scarf Hydro Sweep. But yeah, I'm not sure if that was a misplay. I think it was, as here he goes into his Zapdos, Thunderbolts the Manaphy, and here comes the Garchomp, as he's able to, he just stays in regular form, because that is a Mega Chomp, but he knows he outspeeds Zapdos in regular form, gets the Dragon Claw off, and now here comes the Muck, gets the Iapapa Berry, and this is a modest Zap Plate Zapdos, but Muck is just so bulky that does so little. Had he been Metal Sound instead of Agility, then he could have been able to win this game, but he is Agility here, so the Muck goes for Curse, and this Hydra just is not strong enough to knock out the Muck at this point. He's going to go for the Earthquakes, and he just needs a crit at this point, because he could literally just stall out his he could just stall out the poison turns on the Hydra, because he has no way of boosting his attack or anything like that, and he does not end up getting a crit, thankfully. So now he's just going to be able to beat this Zapdos. The only way he could really win was if he was like able to like poison him, or I mean paralyze him rather. Like he finally gets the static power now, and then he would just have to get like multiple powers in a row or something like that. So that was a really like intense game. It came down to the wire, but it was a shame that there were a lot of misplays on Aki's part, because I feel like he kind of out-prepped Zazo here, but like Zazo still had a really well-built team and a good matchup, so it could have been like an even closer game. But yeah, I feel like Aki definitely made a bunch of mistakes in this one that he normally doesn't. So hopefully if they play again, there will be less of that going on, less of that over predicting, because that really hurt him here. He definitely had the tools to be able to win this game, but that was really big for Tony, because Tony started out at 0-2 and then started a 2-game win streak at this point. So that really got him, back into the swing of things. As I definitely took a while on that one, but it was Rushmore versus Rushmore, so you know what I got to do. I have to give I have to give them some spotlight. So next up, we have another Aki game. Let me save that one for last, so I don't do 2 Akis back to back. But this time we have Silver Smasher versus TDK. A really hype one, because both of these guys went into this game at 4-1, and Silver's been sweating his butt off this season. TDK is just a natural at this, so he's been doing really, really well. Like I said, both 4-1, have really cool Sword and Shield teams. And look at Silver bringing a little Porygon here. That's pretty funny. So we will get right into this game. Silver with the MHA names. I love it. Yoshindo knocks off this Landorus, knocks off the Choice Scarf. Good start for Silver. U-turns, gets a little bit extra chip. Brings in the Porygon, gets the Intimidate off on the Landorus. But he crits through it anyway. No, it happens. But Silver recovers here on the Glastrier, as the close combat only does 51, which is kind of crazy, as he goes into his Garbodor here. Is able to get some Rocky Helmet chip, get up a Spike, and he was not in range of another close combat from there, so that was good on him. As here he's able to go for a Drain Punch, which the Landorus comes in, takes nothing from that, but he's actually going to save the Garbodor and go into his Landorus, as that works out well. He's actually got the leftovers, avoids the Earthquake. Rock Slide does a lot, because this is a max attack, probably sheer force Landorus. So that Rock Slide does a really solid chunk to... I mean, it might not even be max attack, who knows, but it does a really solid chunk to a Lando T. So here comes the Slow King, and U-turn with a lot of attack investment does a lot to Slow King. So good set on Silver's part. As here comes the Sylveon, which this crit is definitely unfortunate, as TDK goes for the Throat Chop there, so he can't Hyper Voice the next turn. I think he originally was Choice Specs on that Sylveon, but I don't think he is anymore. So here the Glastrier goes for the high horsepower, and that crit matters because he probably wouldn't have been in range, or definitely wouldn't have been in range of the Aftermath. Although I think, does Rocky Helmet? I think Rocky Helmet activates from high horsepower, because I think it's a physical contact move, so maybe it still would have knocked him out, because it's 25% plus like 16.67 or something like that. So it might have still knocked him out, but I'm not positive. So here he brings in the Lando versus the Slow King. So he's just probably going to U-turn again here, as yes, that is exactly what he does. Brings in the Weavile, it's heavy duty boots, and he's just going to knock off here. TDK doesn't really have a switch into that. So he brings in the Grimmsnarl next, and Silver brings in his Landorus. He's just going to go right for a U-turn here, get a little chip. That does a lot considering he's at +1, and that's not a sheer force boosted move. But here he is going to recover here. Yeah, just get himself out of range of another attack, so he can maybe fire off an Ice Beam or something. That's what he does. Gets a little bit extra damage off on this Grimmsnarl. As he recovers again here, goes for the Ice Beam once more, and now he's in range of another Throat Chop. I wonder what what was the full set here on TDK's Grimmsnarl? Like, was it a Resist Berry? I don't think it was Resto Chest, because he probably would have revealed it here, as you're gonna see. He just goes right for the Sucker Punch. Yeah, so he's probably bulk up 3 attacks or something, as yeah, he knows that this Sylveon probably outspeeds, so he goes for the Sucker Punch. Good move, because he did have the Throat Chop, yeah, but if the Sylveon does outspeed, then he would have gotten no damage on it, and that would have been worse off for him, because maybe then it's out of range of like a Dragonite attack or something. So here the Kartana comes in, and he actually goes for Protect on his Sylveon, so obviously he was not Choice Spec. So here he goes into Heatran. I know he's got the Chople Berry on the Heatran, as he actually doubles back into the Sylveon here. Good play, as he's able to just go for the Hyper Voice, as Slow King reveals to be Earthquake, which is cool. So here he U-turns, knocks out the Slow King, brings in the Weavile, that forces in the Kartana, and now here he could sack off his Landorus, as actually that Sacred Sword crit if he doesn't crit, then if this is a Scarf Kartana, that next Sacred Sword doesn't knock him out, but it turns out he's not Scarf Kartana. So that's making this Weavile look extra deadly because we know it gets Triple Axle. So Triple Axle helps go through multi-scale. As here, the Heatran ends up going for Dragon Pulse, and the Dragon Pulse is able to actually to KO the Kartana from there. So even if the Dragonite outspeeds, he's pretty much got the game in the bag now because he could just Triple Axle here. Even an Extreme Speed crit, I don't think would be able to knock him out. As oh, he actually went for Ice Shard. Oh, well, I didn't even notice that. I thought he was just going to Triple Axle here, but I think what he had to do was interesting. Very interesting. Because I think what he was saying was that he needed 3 Triple Axle hits if he was Yashi there. And it could always miss, so maybe he felt his best chance was just to Ice Shard twice. But if he was like Outrage or like, I don't know, or just any move plus Extreme Speed, then I think he could have lost. I don't know. I'm not sure. But it ends up working out for him. He just Ice Shards twice. As he does go for the Dragon Dance, I guess hoping that he's not Ice Shard here. He definitely doesn't have Extreme Speed, otherwise he would have gone for it here. So yeah, that was an extremely close game. I really wonder what TDK's moves were. Did he show anything other than Earthquake? No. I wonder if he was. I doubt he was Outrage, but that would have been interesting if he was Outrage, or even like Scale Shot, because like Scale Shot 5 hits is stronger than Outrage. That probably one-shots Weavile. So very interesting game. Very well played on both sides. 2 fantastic players, and both guys from 4-1. Silver moves to 5-1 as TDK drops to 4-2. Still a great record. So moving on to this final game that I have here, we have TJB going up against Aki. TJ has had an amazing season so far. I'm happy to say that I've been a TJ believer ever since last season. Like, some of his games really impressed me, and then obviously he beat me twice. Once at the end of the season, and then in the playoffs when, like, the regular season one, I was already clinched for the playoffs pretty much, so I thought, like, oh, you know, not the biggest deal in the world, was just kind of a quick build, but then in the playoffs, like, I put all my heart and soul into that one, I just couldn't beat him. So I was definitely a big TJ believer going into this season, and I still think the TJ hype hasn't fully caught on as much as it should yet, but he's just been kicking people's butts this season, like, really dominating most of his games. And now he's going up against the GOAT in what I think is his favorite tier, Sword and Shield. So I was excited to see this one because TJ is really good at Sword and Shield. I think that's his best tier. So I knew TJ was going to sweat for this one, but I saw Aki's team, and it was a really good build. So we'll get right into this game as TJ leads with the Skarmory, Aki leads with the Weezing, and he's got the nicknames making fun of me. And he goes for the taunt on the incoming Slowking, goes for Corrosive Gas, removes the boots, which is a pretty good little utility there, brings in the Crocodile, and the Sludge Wave does nothing, as here he's going to go right for the Stealth Rocks on the Zarude switch-in. As here the Zarude goes for the U-turn, crits, and actually reveals to be Weakness Policy, which stinks for Aki pretty badly because that U-turn puts him in range of 2 Rocky Helmet attacks, and he, you know, goes for close combat here, takes the Rocky Helmet damage. So if he went for knock there, it might have been a little better, but I think he actually was a Rocky Helmet Zarude too, but he might not want to hard switch into that Zarude, so that sucks for Aki that he got crit there, because, let me just make sure this is still going, cool, because now the Crook is in range of any other Rocky Helmet attack, and he could probably just sack his Skarmory here. So definitely unfortunate for Aki, as here he goes for the knockoff, does KO the Skarmory, but he loses his Crook in the process. So here he brings in the Ferrothorn as TJ brings in his Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko goes for the Nature's Madness, weakening the Pharaoh a decent amount as Aki gets up some spikes. Now the Volt Switch doesn't do too much, but the Ferrothorn's very weakened. So here Aki goes right for the knockoff and actually crits the Slowking, which is pretty bad for TJ now, as he goes for the Flamethrower, and it just barely misses out on the KO through the Akaberry and does go down to the knockoff, which otherwise would not have if he didn't get crits. So 2 pretty big crits so far. Definitely unfortunate because both guys brought such good prep and they're playing really well too. So here comes the Coco as he's going to Volt Switch out on the Weezing and actually crit there, and that was a huge crit because Aki was actually Custap Weezing, and without TJ having any priority really on his team, the Weezing got a guaranteed important move off on any of the remaining Pokemon. So really unfortunate that he got crit there because it was literally set up perfectly where the Weezing could go in, like almost guaranteed be put in range of Custap by the Coco but not get knocked out. And he crits it, which is really unfortunate. So here he's forced to bring in the Dragapult, goes right for the Will-O-Wisp here as the Zarude comes in, and that gets burned. So Aki is going to switch out into the Ferrothorn here, get a little bit of chip on the Zarude as TJ goes for the U-turn. Brings in his Coco, which is obviously heavy-duty boots, as Aki goes for the Will-O-Wisp here, hoping that I guess he could live an attack, which he does live. The Dazzling Gleam. Knowing Aki, he probably had the perfect EV spread to live that. So now he's able to Hex the Coco, which is going to do a lot, very nearly putting it in range of another burn. So here the Reuniclus comes in as TJ can just go right for the Volt Switch here. Brings in the Zarude, but burning the Zarude really comes into play here because here he's able to Trick Room, and watch this. This is a really, really cool prep on Aki's part. Goes right for the Recover here, and on the Trick Room Reuni, having both Recover and Weakness Policy was perfect here because now it puts the Zarude in range of a +2 Shadow Ball, and TJ actually kind of like throws any chance he has here by going hard into the Mew, probably thinking that like he was forced to go for Focus Blast because you probably would assume if he's Recover and Trick Room, he's going to have a Psychic Stab and Focus Blast to hit the Zarude, but he actually didn't even bring a Psychic move, went with Shadow Ball instead, which was smart. As the Seismitoad comes in now, and he's going to bring in this sack the Zarude just so he can waste another turn of Trick Room. He's boots on like almost his entire team, as here he actually turns out to be like a modest max special attack Seismitoad because these Earth Powers are doing a lot, but Aki does have enough to be able to recover them off. But if he gets Spadef dropped, then he could lose this game right here. So he needs to not get Spadef drop, but thankfully he's out of range of another Earth Power, so he's just able to go for the Trick Room again and just click Shadow Ball twice. Thankfully does not get crit there, as he's able to clean it up here with Shadow Ball because, yeah, that would have been bad if he got crit, because then the Seismitoad would just clean up the game because it probably one hit KOs Archeops if it's a modest Seismitoad, which I believe it is. So really good game, amazing prep on both ends. Those crits were really unfortunate because I feel like the game would have played out differently on both ends had they not had to take that hacks. I think that Aki probably got a little bit of the worst of it because the crook was definitely pretty big, but that Weezing was really big because it was in perfect chance to pop a Custap, which I doubt TJ would have fully expected. I mean, even if he did, there's just not much counterplay he has to it at that point. So definitely unfortunate for Aki, but he kept his head in the game and was able to bring it back, showing everybody why he's the GOAT. And yeah, that was just such a great game. Really, really good prep by Aki. Like, when he preps like this, it's just like, holy crap. Like, how did a human being create this? But then I remember he's not a human being. He's a GOAT. So, all right, I'll stop sucking off Aki for 5 minutes. But yeah, like when Aki does prep like that, like even in the game against Tony, it just goes to show you like why he's been the most successful player throughout UDL's first 2 seasons, because yeah, it's just really hard to top that level of prep. So shoutouts to Aki, but also shoutouts to TJ because he's at a very, very solid 4-2 with amazing wins this season, like some of the most definitive wins all year. So I feel like TJ honestly is like right at the very top in UDL right now in terms of, like, if I were to do like a power ranking sort of thing, he would be very, very high up. before this game, I might have even put him at number 1 because, like, even though there are a couple guys undefeated and stuff, he's just been killing people. So that is very impressive to me. So really, kudos to him. So yeah, there's definitely a bunch more guys that I need to get involved in these videos for the next time around. I'll definitely do my best to do that. If I have to do more than 6 games, then I will. But I just picked 6 ones that I thought were really good, and also involved a few people that maybe I didn't last time. So now I'll just take a quick look at the standings so I could update you all. Let me just drag this over. Take a quick look at this. Okay, cool. I think that should be good. The X Conference obviously looking way tighter. I mean, look at this. The lowest record in the X Conference is still at 2-4, which means they still have a chance to make playoffs almost definitely. So both Nathan and Nick dropped down to 2-4. Unfortunately, with Nathan, really started off strong, but just has not been able to kind of get back to where he was playing earlier in the season. He definitely seemed to be in a little bit of a groove, but is struggling to keep it, whereas Nick is actually on a 2-game win streak, so good on him. Shuckle King and Illusion actually haven't played yet. Hopefully they've played by the time I finish this recording, but I was just like, screw it, I have a little bit of time now, so I'm just going to get it out of the way. Carson and II had to play on their phones, so really wasn't the ideal situation for either of them, but they weren't able to play earlier this week, and Carson's on vacation, so they just kind of had to figure it out. But Carson winning made things a lot more interesting in the X Conference, because I would have gone to 4-2, whereas Carson would have went down to 2-4. But now it actually makes things even more tight because they're both at 3-3. And then next up you have Gohan, who is actually on a little bit of a losing streak from 3-1 now down to 3-3, but has had 2 really good games these past 2 weeks. A really solid one against Kaz this week. And Aki brings himself from I think, was he down to 1-3? No, he was down to 2-3, but brings himself back to neutral, and actually has a fully neutral differential. So fresh slate for the GOAT. Hopefully carries that momentum in the coming weeks. Blitz hanging in there, 3-3, +2. Goof, the Alpha Young Megas, turning the season around, starting off 0-2, and now up to 4-2. 4 straight wins. Really, really good stuff out of the BBC King. Hopefully he keeps turning up the gas, because you could kind of tell he's not really putting in his all to this, or hasn't really put in his all to this season so far. But he's been putting in enough effort to at least keep himself afloat these past few weeks. He's been able to scrounge up a bunch of wins, so that is good stuff, because he's the most deadly by far when it comes to when he's in the playoffs. Same thing with Aki. Like, those are 2 guys that are just like complete savages when it comes to playoff time. So you don't have to worry about his quality of play when he's in the playoffs, just has to make sure that he gets there. But the fact that he's at 4-2 now puts him in a really, really good spot. So then Kaz too, another guy who's been like kind of struggling, like 0-1, 1-2, gets himself all the way up to 4-2. So he's been doing great. Had a really good game against Gohan this week, and he smashed Carson last week. He just always has Carson's number, and moved up to 4-2, as TJ, like I said, has been destroying people. So even though he's at 4-2, he's still a +9, which is a really good differential. So still at number 1 in the X Conference, as now we go down to the Y Conference, which is a little bit less tight across the board, but still kind of tight. Yeah, definitely still kind of tight, as you have both Hiker and myself at 6-0. Hiker passed me this week in differential. I really think that I would have had just as much differential, if not more, than him this week. I played Helmy, and I had like a Shell Smash Caracosta, and I missed Stone Edge, and that killed me. Or I missed Zen Headbutt, and that killed me. And then there were a couple scenarios later in the game where I got a little unlucky and didn't get to have my Holucha come in, when it was in range to just be able to sweep. So I think I would have had a little higher of a differential win instead of a 1-0, but differential I don't really care too much about. But the differential race is just so tight amongst these top 3, as you have both Silver and myself at +12. Even though Silver has a loss, and then Hiker has, like I said, passed me this week. So Hiker at number 1, myself at number 2, both at 6-0. We'll see if both of us can keep that undefeated record, like who could keep it the longest, or if either of us could even keep it, or if both of us keep it. That would be wild. So curious to see how that plays out in the final 3 weeks. I know I'm definitely gonna go for the undefeated season, because why not? Like, undefeated season in UDL for me is a really good goal to shoot for, because I just feel like it's hard to do. So something that I want to do. And then yeah, Hiker's just been really good. I can't remember if I featured him last week or not in or the last cycle or not in any of those games, but I should show some of his games coming up, because I think he's got a pretty tough stretch of opponents coming up, so I'm curious to see how he's able to do. But just amazing drafts this season. He's been kicking butt. Silver, like I said, just been amazing. Had a huge win over TDK this week. Probably his best win of the season, honestly, as TDK. 4-2 plus 6. Ice, just like Zazo, started at 0-2 and goes all the way up to 4-2 with 4 straight wins. So he's just been kicking butt on a huge streak. I'm actually playing Ice this week for week 7, so I'm excited to see what he can do. As like I said, I'm going for the undefeated season if I can, so I am not going to make it easy for him if he wants to continue that win streak. So I'm excited to play Ice. I've never actually played him before in a singles match, so looking forward to that. Then you have Anti next, the Carcoals at 3-3 -1. He's had a really tough stretch of opponents. It's been for week 3 it was me. Then next up he had TDK, where he won on that like speed tie. Then next up he had Hiker, where he had a really bad matchup. This week he had Rob, and Rob really like turned up the heat. Next up we have Jake, who had a really big win this week that definitely put him back into the playoff picture, because he was at 1-4, but he beat Obi like 5-0, so that was really big for his differential, and also obviously his record. So Rob, same thing with him, like 1-4. Rob's been getting pretty unlucky this season, so he definitely dropped a game or two that he probably didn't deserve to. But it just goes to show how tough UDL is when you have the guy who was the champ of the season last year at 1-4 at any point in the season, which is pretty crazy. So now he's back up to 2-4 with another really big win against Anti. And Obi, unfortunately, was at 2-3, but took a really big loss this week that really hurt his differential. But still in contention, because 2-4 is just very close to these 4-2 and 3-3 teams. So 2-4 definitely isn't out of it, but 1-5 looks like it's hard to come back from at this point. Being able to get 4 wins max when you have 5 out of the 6 playoff spots already with 4 or more wins. So I don't really see any of these 1-5 coaches being able to make playoffs, unfortunately. As then Sebi's here at 0-6. Been playing so much better than 0-6, but things just have not worked out for him, unfortunately, this season. So sorry about that, Sebi. But those are the standings for UDL currently. I'm sorry that I rambled a lot in this video, but sometimes when I'm not like, I don't know, I just did this kind of on the fly and I'm not in the zone, so it took a while. I wasn't very concise with a lot of my thoughts and just rambling all over the place a little bit, but I just really love this league, so I really enjoy talking about all the different games, all the different coaches and their performances, and the standings and the matchups, and it's just a lot of fun for me because it's exciting. It's high level, and just so many people in the league that I really just love and enjoy hanging out with and playing Pokemon with. So shout outs to all you guys. Everyone's done a great job. We've only had 1 forfeit this season through 2 cycles, which is great. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this last cycle. The final stretch going into the playoffs is going to be very interesting, because like I said, the Y conference is pretty tight, but I mean, this X conference is like pretty much anyone can make playoffs at this point. So like when the number 1 coach in X is only 2 wins from the ones at the very bottom, it just kind of goes to show how tough this league is. And obviously between Illusion and SK, one's going to go up to 3-3 and 1 at 2-4, so nobody's out. Everyone's right in the middle, and that's going to be a crazy race to the finish as to who's going to make playoffs in the X conference. So really excited for that. Hope you all are as well. And that's going to be all for this video. So hope you all enjoyed, and hope you all have a great day, weekend, rest of your week, and I will catch you all in the next one later.